blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, sanctifies us with his commandments and commands us to engross ourselves in the words of Torah. This is the third reading from the book of Numbers, and it's the 36th reading from the Torah, and it's called Be'alotah. It's a word that literally means when you ascend, and it comes from the first verse of the portion, which could literally be translated, when you ascend the lamps, okay? And that's a reference to the fact that the priest had to step up on something. They had to pull their little step stool out and step up to work on the lamps of the menorah, the candlestick. Now, this portion has got a lot of stuff in it. I mean, just a whole bunch. It tells the story of the consecration of the Levites, the first Passover in the wilderness, the silver trumpets, the cloud of glory, the departure from Sinai, and the grumbling in the wilderness, the first Sanhedrin, and the punishment of Miriam. Okay, and so if you remember back a little bit, during this parsha, I also did one called "You've Spent Enough Time or Going Around This Mountain," or "It's Time to Leave the Mountain." So we're not going to do that now. Now, many of you know that I came from West Texas, out on the high plains, and there was a fellow out there that I call him the poet laureate of Lubbock. Okay, guy named Mac Davis. All right. Now, one of his claims to fame was that his song was "Happiness is Lubbock, Texas, in the rearview mirror." Okay, and I can attest to that one. Boy, I never want to go back to living in Lubbock. There's not a tree to be had out there. It's dry, real dry, and. I know we grew up on a cotton farm out there. So, but now here's a little song that he wrote he wrote and then he sang it with my twin brother, and you'll see this. It's a little song about humility.
It's hard to be humble when you're perfect, never when you're perfect in every way. Can't wait to look in the mirror. I can't wait to look in the mirror. I get better looking each day. I get better looking each day. To know me is to what? To know me is to love me. Must be a hell of a man. I must be a hell of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble. What are we doing? We're doing the best that we can. We're doing the best that we
Okay. Now, I was going to sing that for you, but when my wife read the sermon, she looked at it and says, "Ain't no way that you're going to get up there and sing that and then actually speak on humility after singing that." So today I want to explore the relationship between true greatness and humility. Have you ever considered the things that one writes on a resume? How many of you ever written out a resume most all of us have. I mean, I even had to do a resume when I was 17, 18 years old to get into the Coast Guard Academy, such as it was. All it was, it says, yeah, I made good grades and I didn't get in too much trouble. And that was about all I had. But then later on, we have a written resume that will list all of a big set of accomplishments and skills that are the mark of success. You want to tell your prospective employer all the good things that you can do and how you're going to make him a lot of money and you're going to take care of things, right? That's the way you do resumes. On the other hand, what about things that are written on a eulogy or the obituary page? Of course, you don't normally write that yourself. Somebody else writes it for you. Those are the virtues and the strengths that make you the kind of person you are when that public mask is not worn and no one else is looking. Now, David Brooks, in his best-selling novel The Road to Character, appropriately enough called the former one the resume virtues. Okay, and then the second part, he called them the eulogy virtues. Now, there's a big difference between the two, but together they can help paint a portrait of something that looks sort of like you. It's somewhere between the bragging on the resume and then somebody else bragging on you at the end. Maybe there's something in the middle there that we can look at. In 1965, there's a rabbi, he's pretty famous in Jewish literature, Joseph Soloveitchik. That's it, Soloveitchik. I stumble over that every time, okay, because it should have been Jones or something. In his now famous essay, The Lonely Man of Faith, he saw two types of men. One he called Adam 1. And he was the human person as a creator, a builder, a master of nature, imposing his will on the world. The other one he called Adam 2. And he was the covenantal personality, living in obedience to divine truth, guided by a sense of duty and right and a willingness to serve. Now, Adam 1 seeks success. Adam 2 strives for charity, love, and redemption. Adam 1 lives by the logic of economics, the pursuit of self-interest, and maximum utility. Adam 2, on the other hand, lives by the very different logic of what? Morality, where giving matters more than receiving, and conquering desire is more important than satisfying it. In the moral universe, success, when it leads to pride, becomes failure. What did the Bible say? Pride comes before the fall, okay? Failure, when it leads to humility, can be success. If one looks around us in America today, we have to wonder, could Adam 2 even exist in our world, much less grow and thrive? We just don't live in that kind of world, do we? No, not very. You don't see that person very often. Now, that's one of the main themes of Beha Alotka, our Parsha for today. Now, up to this point, we have seen the outer Moses, the miracle worker, the mouthpiece of the divine word, unafraid to confront Pharaoh on the one hand, his own people on the other hand, the man who shattered the tablets engraved by God himself and challenged him to forgive his people. And he says, if not, blot me out of the book you have written. This is the public Moses, the Charlton Heston Moses, okay? You know, that they couldn't have picked a better dude for that. He's a figure of heroic strength. In the Soloveitchik terminology, this is Moses 1. Now, in Behalatka, we see Moses 2, the lonely man of faith. It's a very different picture. That in the first scene, we see him, we see he just breaks down. The people are complaining again about the food. They have manna but no meat. Boo-hoo-hoo. You know, too bad. They have faulty memories, basically. They said, we remember the fish we used to eat in Egypt for free. Yeah, well, you know, when you're a slave and they throw something at you, you know, that's free, not for me. The cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. Oh, my goodness, all those good things. They were slaves. This was the straw that broke the camel's back for Moses. He gives way to a deep depression. You know, just broke him. Numbers 11 says, so Moses asked Adonai,
Why have you brought trouble on your servant? Haven't I found favor in your eyes that you laid the burden of these people on me? Did I conceive all these people, or did I give birth to them, that you would say to me, carry them into your bosom just as the nurse carries an infant to the land you promised to their fathers? Where can I get meat for all these people? Kind of like the disciples asked, where are we going to come up with some food for these people? They wailed to me, saying, give us meat to eat. I am not able to carry all these people by myself. The load is too heavy for me. If this is how you are treating me, just kill me now and get me out of my misery. I added that. This is how you are treating me. Kill me now. For if I have found favor in your eyes, kill me, please. Don't let me see my own misery. That's it. Just kill me now and take me out of my misery. I'm so miserable. Then comes a great transformation. God tells him to take 70 elders who will bear the burden with him. God takes the spirit that is on Moses and he extends it to the elders. He gives them some of that spirit that is in Moses. And, you know, there were two guys, Eldad and Medad, and I have no idea why they did not make it to the prayer meeting, but they didn't. They were still in the camp. And when the Spirit of the Lord came on those 68 elders, they all began prophesying, just praising the Lord. Well, guess what happened to the two dudes that did not make it up to the prayer meeting? Well, they started prophesying and praising the Lord, and just you know, it was quite a show. I mean, quite a demonstration of God's Spirit. They too had been gifted with Moses' spirit. Now Joshua feared that this may lead to a challenge to Moses' leadership and urges Moses to stop them. Moses answered with just amazing generosity. He says, are you jealous on my behalf? If only Adonai would make all the people prophets. If only Adonai would put the Spirit on all of them. The mere fact that Moses now knew that he was not alone, seeing that he had 70 elders that shared his spirit, it cures him of his depression. You know, that just kind of lifts him up. I've got people behind me now. And now he displays a gentle, generous confidence that is moving, and quite frankly, it's kind of unexpected. You know, you don't expect Charlton Heston to be humble. In Act 3 of the saga of Moses, we finally see where this drama has been headed all the way through this parsha. Now it's Moses' own brother and sister, Aaron and Miriam. They start disparaging him. The cause of their complaint is that Cushite woman that he had taken as a wife. Well, we don't know much about this. It's not clear, and there's many interpretations of who this was and all that. But the point is, though, that for Moses, this is one of those et tu, Brute moments, you know, when Julius Caesar, walking through the Senate, just had this stabbing pain in his back. Of course, it was accompanied by a knife, and he turned around and looked, and as he's dying, he asked Brutus, you two, that's what, and see, I said et tu, Brute, that's Latin, okay? Isn't that smart? Oh, my goodness. So, just remember, that just means that I listened one time in high school, that's all. He had been betrayed, or at least slandered, by those who were closest to him. Yet Moses is unaffected. It's here that the Torah makes its great statement. Now the man Moses was very humble, more so than anyone on the face of the earth. Now, this is an amazing departure from the customs of the day, The idea that a leader's greatest or his highest virtue is humility was certainly out of character, out of the norm for the potentates of the ancient world. They just didn't do that. Leaders were proud. They were magnificent, distinguished by their dress, appearance, and regal manner. They built temples in their own honor. They had triumphant inscriptions that were engraved for posterity. We still see some of those today, and that are left over from 2,000 years ago. Their role was not to serve, but to be served. Everyone else was expected to be humble, but not them. Okay? Humility and majesty could not coexist. The teachings of Judaism, however, and later on the teachings of our own Messiah, they turned that concept of leadership up on its head. Now, leaders were to be servants of the people. The normal idea of leadership could be viewed as a pyramid, okay, where you've got all these people at the bottom holding up that one leader at the top. The menorah, though, is a picture of godly leadership, where it's got, pretty little small base at the bottom, but then it's wide at the top, so that meaning that leader is holding up that candlestick for everyone else, okay? So that's kind of a picture of what leadership in Judaism, in Messianic Judaism, is, or as it should be. As the Parsha progresses, we see Moses acquiring an even deeper level of humility. Under the stress and strain of Israel's constant stubbornness, Moses turns inward. Listen again to what he says this is from the complete Jewish Bible translation. In Numbers 11, Moshe asked Adonai, "Why are you treating your servant so badly? Why haven't I found favor in your sight so that you put me in the burden of this entire people on me?" Did I conceive this people? Was I their father, so that you tell me, carry them in your arms like a nurse carrying a baby to the land you swore to their ancestors? Where am I going to get meat to give this entire people? Because they keep bothering me, and with their crying and saying, give us meat to eat. I can't carry this entire people by myself alone. It's just too much for me. So, the complete Jewish Bible, David Stern had a little bit different, little different take on it. The key words here are I, me, and myself. Moses had lapsed back into that first person singular. And he got a little bit, feeling sorry for himself a little bit more. He was showing his inner Charlton Heston. He sees the Israelites' behavior as a challenge to himself and not to God. God has to remind him, is the Lord's arm too short? It isn't about you, Moses. It's about what and whom you represent. It was not Moses, it was God that Moses represented. So at this point, Moses could say, I got a problem here. You take it. And but he didn't do that. He just kind of took it on himself. Moses had been alone too long. He had been carrying the burdens of the leadership all by himself up to this point. He needed other human beings to help him shoulder the load. And there are only two places in the Torah that uses the phrase lo tov. Anyone know what that means? Lo tov. Not good. One is at the beginning of the human story where God says, it is lo tov, not good for man to be alone. The other instance is when Yitro, or Jethro in English, Moses' father-in-law tells him regarding his leadership style, he said, it is not good what you are doing. We cannot live alone, and we can't lead alone. As soon as Moses sees the 70 elders share his spirit, his depression disappears. He says to Joshua, "Are you jealous on my behalf?" He is able to say that at that point. And he's certainly undisturbed by the complaint of his own brother and sister. In fact, he prayed to God on Miriam's behalf when she was punished with leprosy. And, he had recovered his humility. And, of course, Miriam recovered from the leprosy. Now we understand what humility is. It's not self-abasement, or lack of self-esteem, or weakness. A statement often attributed to C.S. Lewis, but actually was from Rick Warren, the Purpose-Driven Church and all that. He put it best: humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less. Think about that one a minute. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's just thinking of yourself less. Makes sense, huh? There's a remarkable lady from Australia that had her own take on humility. Shamsa Lee is, as of a couple of years ago, and I'd read this article from 2020, was still serving in the Royal Australian Air Force as a logistics officer. And I think she was a major. I can't, she's not, she doesn't have her uniform on there, but I think one of the pictures I saw her back then was she was a major in the Air Force. And she had been in combat zones from Afghanistan to New Guinea to just, everywhere that Australia sent combat troops, she went there to take care of the logistics. And this is what she had to say: be confident in your own awesomeness that you be confident enough in your own awesomeness that you don't think twice about creating opportunities for others. There is enough to go around. That's a pretty good definition of humility, isn't it? Shamsa expands and drives home the whole point of humility. Your success is not diminished by the success of others. Your knowledge is not dimmed by them. You have the option to create success for others, but only if you start thinking of them before yourself. The ripple effect of true servant leadership can have a deep and influential impact on more than just the people around us. In a real-life example of Shamsa's servant leadership, what that has accomplished, her then boyfriend Hayden Lee, visited church with her. He was stirred by the Holy Spirit, gave his life to the Lord. The event was so impactful that he became a chaplain in the Royal Australian Air Force. So there you see him. Now he's a chaplain, and just looking at his fruit salad there, he'd been to a few places too. And, he has been able to minister to countless military personnel in their own times of extraordinary vulnerability. Our influence as humble and kind believers in Yeshua should be so strong that others can rise to their own purposes within the kingdom of God. People often confuse humility with not having enough self-esteem. That you're just not, that you think of yourself so poorly. I'm just nothing. They think that humility, lack of self-esteem, that equals what? Weakness. It's believed that a humble person are those with nothing to contribute. And this is absolutely false. The most humble people realize that all the things that they do know highlight just how much they do not. One of the worst things that, we see is where people, they don't know something, and they don't know that they don't know something. That's a dangerous person, okay? that they don't know something. They think they do, but they don't, and they don't even know that they don't. Does that make sense? Okay, you got it? All right. That was not in my notes, so I don't know if that was going to come out right. They realize that their identity is not affected by other people's words. This is a truly humble person. They realize that their identity is not affected by other people's words or actions. They are comfortable as themselves. Okay, just being comfortable in your own skin. You know, I am comfortable with being 5'7". Not so much comfortable with the girth that comes along with that, but with my seniority status. But, you know, I got over the fact that I was never going to be 7 feet tall and an NBA star. I got over it, sort of. The most humble person is not the one being overly deferential to those with power and understanding. It is not the person conceding to every argument. You don't have to roll over and play dead, you know, or be like the puppy that you get onto them and they just roll over and, you know, they're so acquiescent to everything that you tell them. The most humble person can engage people from their position of power. They can learn from people who may not have their level of education, and a truly humble person can listen to another's argument, consider it, and possibly concede that they were wrong. Now, I'm just thinking about something that back when I was a young, brand spanking new ensign in the Coast Guard, going to my first ship, and I was just days from reporting aboard, and my dad, who had been a NCO in the Marine Corps in World War II. He said, "Son, let me tell you something. When you get on that ship, listen to your chief petty officers. He said, they're going to give you a hard time. They're going to mess with you. They're going to pull things on you, just, you know, whatever. But," he said, "listen to them. And don't get too upset with them when they mess with you, because that's just the nature of a chief petty officer with a young officer. That's part of your character building, isn't it, Ed? Leonard, you guys that been there, done that. I don't know how many of you, the rest of you, have been in the military, but you know what I'm talking about if you have." And he was right. You know, it was my pattern that I would always make sure that I brought the chief petty officers into my confidence, because they may not have had the education that I did, but guess what? Man, they had a ton of experience. And I've been in leadership positions in both the military industry and now in ministry. And I can tell you that the being able to listen to people, hear their concerns, and keep your mouth shut is often a very difficult task. We have to put ourselves aside. Many people think that they have to tear others down in order to reach the top. Solomon said, "In silence there is wisdom." In other words, you know, in that, you know, I think it was, who was it? Mark Twain said that if you say nothing, people will think you a fool. And then when you open your mouth, it removes all doubt, or something like that. That's why you should listen twice, then speak. The Greek word for meek is praus, and it refers to mildness, gentleness of spirit, or humility. Meekness is humility toward God and toward others. It is having the right or the power to do something, but refraining for the benefit of someone else. Paul urged meekness when he told us to live a life worthy of the calling we have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. You don't have to cut someone else down to get ahead. In fact, if you can lift other people up around you, that's all. I mean, that is the mark. That's really the mark of a true leader and a true greatness, is if you can lift other people up. And that means in your family, with your kids, or with your other family members, with your spouse, that if you can lift them up, they will lift you up. Okay, and I read an article, a book many years ago by Gary Smalley, and now I can't remember the name of it because I shouldn't have said that because I can't remember the name of it, but I remember the gist of it. He said this was in How to Treat Your Wife, and he said one of the best ways to ensure success in your marriage is to treat that wife of yours as if she was the queen of the world. Put her on a pedestal and make her feel like that she is the most important person in your life. She better be, okay? I'm just, all you men out there, I'm just telling you. All right? So, a true God-gifted leader will not ascend to the top on the carcasses of other people's hopes and dreams and shattered opportunities. No, he will reach the top by caring for and nurturing those to whom he has been entrusted. A good picture is a cheerleader formation, where they get all of these girls, and that's what's one of them there, that they got this gal, she's up there, and of course, she's the smallest, the most vulnerable of the whole squad. But guess who's on top? The smallest, the most vulnerable one on top, because everyone else is holding her up. Aspiring to leadership is neither good nor bad. Some seek it while others avoid it. Either way is fine, because we all have our part to play in God's economy. Not everyone is called to be a leader. The key is always to be an humble servant, whether you are the general or the recruit. Yeshua taught this lesson many times. He said, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And again in Matthew 18, he says, whoever then shall humble himself like this child, this one is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And of course, the most graphic example of humility and service was in the Last Supper, where Yeshua washed the feet of the disciples. I told someone the other day, I didn't start out my career in the Coast Guard as a captain of a ship. Nope. I started out working in the galley, swabbing the decks, cleaning up the mess tables, and I learned how to cook food and so forth for a whole bunch of men, all at one. And the idea, one of the things that I thought that was the slickest thing was, okay, you're making a salad. And you know how a big old head of lettuce, it's got that little hard part, the stem, where it, right there in the middle. You can take that thing, go pop like that, and pull that thing right out, and then just chop up your lettuce, and then you can make, you don't have to take a knife and try to carve that thing out, pop, and then it's done. Chop it up, and you're good to go. That's one of the things that I just learned and said, wow, how neat is that? I still remember it to this day, 54 years later, and so. Yeah, because it was about 54 years ago that I went to sea for the first time. Learned an awful lot of things about how to be humble, okay? Because I was not perfect in every way. Godly greatness is not a lofty position in some organization, but true greatness is found in how we treat each other. Let's remember that this Father's Day, that greatness is how we humbly serve our community, our workplace, and our families as Yeshua humbly served us. If you're a truly humble person, then you are great in the eyes of the Lord. You don't have to be, some high and mighty person with with a microphone. Okay? You can be that humble servant, and whatever the word, whatever the thing that God gives you to do that to the very best of your abilities. Then that's where you will achieve greatness. Could we